Usually, when we pull up a map on our phones or, look at a globe, there is this really heavy, unspoken expectation of absolute stillness.
Right. Yeah, it's completely static.
Exactly. We see a mountain range shaded in brown, or like a river cutting a blue line through a valley, a jagged coastline, and we accept that they are fixed, permanent objects.
Oh, for sure. We just take it for granted.
Yeah, the borders are drawn in thick ink, and we just operate on the assumption that the land is simply like the solid, silent stage where the actual drama of our lives happens.
It's the ultimate illusion of human scale, honestly, because we live for such a brief flash of time. We look at the immense, the really slow-moving architecture of the Earth,
Hmm.
and we mistake its pacing for paralysis.
Right.
We view the ground as inert scenery, just, a backdrop.
But then you encounter a perspective that takes that entire map and just completely tears it to shreds.
It really does.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are taking a look at a truly incredible excerpt today from an essay called Gaia's Geography, The Tongue of Mother Earth.
Yes, and it is a wild
It
ride.
really is. And our mission for you on this deep dive is, well, it's pretty ambitious. We want to completely shatter the way you look at the ground beneath your feet. We're going to explore the idea that the Earth is an active, living body that is quite literally in the middle of a sentence.
Which is a radical shift in how we process our environment.
Yep.
I mean, the goal here is to look at ancient mythology not as cute, primitive stories that early humans made up because they didn't understand the water cycle.
Right, like they were just guessing.
Exactly. But to look at it as literal physical geography that you and I interact with every single day of our lives.
So to even begin to understand the Earth's body, we have to start at the literal beginning. The source text takes us all the way back to the oldest Greek creation myths, specifically focusing on Gaia, Mother Earth.
The foundation of it all.
Yeah. Now, usually I think of creation gods treating the world like a massive sandbox. You know, like they sit in the clouds, they mold the clay, they dig the trenches for the rivers, and then they just watch their creation from a distance.
Right. All right, the very detached creator model.
But this text points at a detail that changes everything. Gaia didn't just build the Earth, she gave birth to it.
In that distinction, it alters the entire framework of how we interact with nature.
How so?
Well, in those early myths, figures like Uranos, the sky, Aurea, the mountains, and Pontus, the sea, they are not Gaia's metaphorical children or, realms she governs. They are her body externalized.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. The mountains weren't granted to her as territory. They came out of her. When you look at a towering mountain range, you are looking at something that used to be held inside a mother and is now permanently resting outside of her.
I have to admit, when I first read that, I had to stop and really unpack the implications because it's heavy. The text is basically arguing that the sand in the sandbox is the god.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not the scenery, it's the anatomy. The geography itself is the mythology, just lying there for us to walk on.
Which sets up the central, probably the most startling proposition of the entire essay.
Oh, this part is crazy.
It is. The author proposes that the surface of the Earth, like these rivers, the mountain ranges, the jagged coastlines, that they function specifically as Gaia's tongue.
I am so glad we are getting to this because at first glance, that sounds bizarre.
It sounds a little unhinged, honestly.
Right, like a planetary tongue. Not her skin, not her hands shaping the world. Why focus on the tongue? It sounds so weirdly specific and honestly a little grotesque to imagine ourselves walking around on a giant tongue.
It does feel strange until you look at the actual biological function of a tongue. If you think about human anatomy, the tongue is an absolute anomaly.
Okay, how so?
Well, it is the only organ built to do two completely opposite things at the exact same time. It receives the world by tasting,
Yeah.
and it produces the world by speaking.
Okay, let's unpack this because, an eye only takes information in,
Right.
and a hand mostly puts action out into the world.
Precisely. But a wet, highly muscular tongue sits right at the threshold doing both jobs constantly. It samples whatever arrives in the mouth, and it shapes whatever air is leaving the lungs. And the text argues that the physical ground under our feet is performing exactly this same double duty.
I'm struggling to picture this practically, though. I mean, if the Earth's surface is a tongue-producing speech, what exactly is it saying, and how do we even hear it?
That's the leap you have to make.
Because when I look at a river, I just see water obeying gravity. Are rivers just like planetary spit? How does water carving a rock equate to a spoken language?
This is where we have to view geography through the lens of linguistics. A river isn't just passive water flowing downhill. It is an active mechanism of pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
Yes, think about what a vowel is in human speech. It is an unobstructed, continuous flow of sound. The essay suggests that a river carving a canyon is a river sustaining the pronunciation of a single vowel.
Oh, wow. Wait, so when we look at the Grand Canyon, we aren't just looking at a place where a river used to be.
Not at all.
The text says it is a syllable. It is literally what the sound ah looks
Right.
like when Gaia holds that exact tone for 6 million years.
Yes. It is stretching a sound across epochs instead of seconds. The sheer volume of water and the depth of the canyon act as the physical waveform of that spoken vowel.
But, I mean, a language can't just be vowels. You'd just be humming forever. Where do the other sounds come from?
Okay, try saying a hard consonant right now, like the letter T or a sharp K.
Okay, TK.
Notice what your tongue has to do.
It hits the roof of my mouth.
Exactly. It has to press forcefully against the hard palate, the bony ridge behind your teeth, to temporarily stop the air. Without that resistance, you can't make a consonant. It just remains formless breath. Structurally, mountain ranges act as the hard palate of the earth.
Oh, so a river needs something to crash against to make a sound. That makes perfect sense.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So where a river meets a dense mountain range, you don't get a smooth humming vowel. You get rapids, you get massive waterfalls, you get the violent click and crash of water, absolutely refusing to slide quietly past something solid.
Those are the sharp, percussive consonants of the landscape. And then, once the river breaks through the mountains and the land finally opens up into a wide, sprawling floodplain or a delta, the landscape softens again.
Right, it spreads out.
Yeah, that's the released sigh of a vowel, finally finding flat ground after the tension of the consonant.
There is this massive aha moment in the text that completely blew my mind regarding how humans subconsciously already know this. It's in the etymology of the word geography itself.
Oh, the origins of the word are incredibly revealing.
Yeah, it comes from the Greek roots geo, meaning earth, and graphene, meaning to write, earth writing.
What's fascinating here is that the ancient people who coined that specific term looked out at coastlines and mountain ranges, and they didn't call it earth painting.
Right.
They didn't call it earth sculpture. They explicitly called it writing.
Which means they saw it as a record. And writing is always a transcript of prior speech. Like, humans speak for years before they learn the alphabet.
Exactly.
Entire civilizations told oral histories for millennia before anyone invented written symbols. Writing is just the leftover record of an event that has already happened.
It is the fossilization of a voice. Because our human lives are so incredibly short, we mistake the Earth's slow, tectonic speech for stillness.
We just don't live long enough to hear it.
Right. We look at a rocky coastline and think it's a permanent fixture. But a coastline is just a frozen recording of a wave meeting a shore 10,000 times a day. It is a word in the middle of being spoken, and we swiftly arrive too late and stay for too short a time to see the mouth moving.
So if geography is just the transcript, does that mean humans are basically living in the subtitles of a movie we're too small to actually hear?
That is a phenomenal way to conceptualize it. We're walking around inside the subtitles, assuming the text written on the screen is the entirety of the film, completely deaf to the massive, booming audio track playing underneath it all.
But wait, if the surface of the earth is the tongue shaping these words, a tongue doesn't make sound entirely on its own. You can move your tongue around all you want, but without air from the lungs, it's silent. Where is the earth's breath coming from?
To find the breath, the text forces us to go underground into the deep anatomy. We have to travel down into the throat.
Into the caves, the caverns.
Yes.
The underground rivers running completely blind through limestone, the massive magma chambers sitting quiet and pressurized under a mountain. The author argues that this subterranean world is the throat. It's the resonant, dark space sitting above the vocal cords, where breath first gathers and becomes vibration long before it ever reaches the surface to be shaped by the tongue.
Have you ever walked deep into an unlit cave?
Yeah, a few times.
There's a very specific primal feeling that hits you. You suddenly feel like you aren't just in a tunnel. You feel like you're standing inside a source.
It's eerie, the echo changes, the air feels heavier.
That heaviness is because you are standing in the part of the throat where a sound is still just raw breath, still gathering the pressure to decide what shape it's going to take on the surface.
And if we zoom out even further, from the throat to the lungs generating the breath itself, the scale gets truly planetary. This is where the text brings in plate tectonics, right?
Yes, and we have to really grasp the time scale here. Roughly 200 million years ago, Virtually all of the Earth's continents were gathered into a single massive landmass we call Pangaea.
Right, the supercontinent.
Over millions of years, they broke apart, drifting outward, sliding mere centimeters a year across the mantle. And many geologists suspect they will eventually, millions of years from now, reconverge into another single supercontinent.
It's a cycle happening so slowly our brains just categorize it as fixed data, just rocks sliding on magma.
But if you view that grand cycle of drifting apart and reconverging as a biological function, then plate tectonics isn't just rocks sliding around. It is an unimaginably slow inhale and exhale. It is the single slowest breath available to witness in the entire solar system. Everything we've discussed on the surface, the resonant caves, the crashing coastlines, the long vowels of the canyons, is just what that massive planetary breath sounds like once it finally reaches the tongue and is shaped into something audible.
The author connects this huge planetary breath back down to our own bodies in such a brilliant way, using the idea of somatic experience.
The somatic connection grounds this entire theory. Think about how human emotion physically works. When you get bad news or when you are suddenly frightened, the physical feeling, like a tightened chest, a sudden dropping feeling in your gut, an involuntarily held breath, it always precedes your conscious thought about that feeling.
Right. Your body reacts before your brain even has words for what just happened.
The somatic charge, that physical tightening, is the actual primary speech of your body. The coherent thought you have a half second later is just the summary you manage to translate into language.
Okay, I see where this is going.
The text applies this to the Earth. Gaia's massive physical movements, the grinding of tectonic plates, the held breath of a magma chamber, are prior to the geography we actually see. The physical landscape is just the delayed thought. The held breath in the deep Earth is the real thing.
The idea that a massive mountain peak isn't just a pile of rock, but a held somatic breath that was prior to the landscape, it's staggering. Now, I know it is very easy for you listening to this to think, okay, this is a beautiful, highly poetic Greek metaphor, but it's just philosophy.
It is extremely tempting to dismiss it as a clever literary device.
Exactly what I thought. But the source text goes on to prove that this isn't just one Greek poet's wild idea. This is a universally shared human intuition. The text runs through an incredible global tour of mythology to show that isolated cultures all over the world arrived at this exact same conclusion.
Which raises an important question. When a deeply specific concept appears independently across multiple, completely unconnected cultures, it crosses the line from poetry into empirical observation.
So let's look at the Hindu tradition first. You have Bhumi Devi, the earth personified. In one central story, she gets dragged down into the cosmic ocean by a demon, and she has to be physically rescued and repositioned by an avatar of Vishnu. The text points out something vital here. A backdrop doesn't have a posture.
Right.
A stage cannot be put in an uncomfortable position. A body can.
A body that can be submerged, lifted, and restored to a proper posture is a body that is actively participating in its environment.
Then we cross the globe to the Andean world in South America. Pachamama, the Earth Mother, she isn't just worshipped philosophically from afar, she is literally fed.
Right, with physical offerings.
Yeah, people pour coca leaves and fermented chicha directly into the soil. You don't feed a stage, you don't pour a drink onto a theater set. You feed an appetite.
You only offer food to something you believe possesses the capacity to taste what you've given it.
And in the Gaelic tradition of Scotland and Ireland, you have the Cailleach, this divine hag figure. She creates the landscape not by waving a magic wand, but simply by walking. She drops massive blocks and huge cairns of stone out of her apron as she strides across the land. The boulders fall out of her like words falling out of a mouth mid-sentence. The rugged Scottish landscape is literally her footprint.
Which mirrors the linguistic concept we discussed earlier perfectly. The stones she drops are the hard consonants physically left behind.
This next one really stopped me in my tracks. In Igbo cosmology in West Africa, when a severe oath is sworn, it isn't sworn to the sky. Oaths are sworn directly into the earth goddess Allah, and she listens and she responds with consequences if the oath is broken.
That's fascinating.
You don't swear an oath to a piece of dead dirt. You swear it to something that can hear you. And finally, even going all the way back to Sumerian myths, Ki, the earth, and An, the sky, were originally fused together in one solid mass before being separated, which perfectly mirrors the Greek story of Gaia and Uranus.
When you look at all of these examples together, it forces a realization. People who are paying close, sustained attention to the ground beneath their very different feet, across vastly different climates and continents, all realize the exact same thing.
They all saw it.
The ground is not passive. It possesses a body, it possesses an appetite, and it possesses a voice.
And that appetite brings us to the second half of our biological metaphor. We've spent a lot of time exploring how the Earth's tongue speaks, how it carves canyons and hums long vowels, but we completely forgot the other primary function of a tongue, which is tasting.
The receiving end of the wet muscle. If the earth is speaking, it must also be sampling.
This is where the author brings in the concept of terroir. If you are deeply into wine, or even specialty coffee, you probably know this term.
Oh yeah, it's a huge buzzword.
Right. It's the idea that specific soil, with its exact mineral content, its altitude, the way the sunlight hits it, imparts a highly specific taste to a grape or a coffee bean that absolutely cannot be replicated anywhere else on Earth. A grape grown in volcanic ash in Italy tastes fundamentally different from the same grape grown in limestone in France.
Winemakers and roasters often say the land is expressing itself through the fruit. It is the geography asserting its unique signature.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The text takes that concept of terroir and flips it entirely on its head. It argues that the grape isn't the land expressing a message outward to us. The plant is Gaia's own taste bud.
It's a phenomenal, mind-bending shift in perspective.
Isn't it? The vine is planted directly down into the earth's tongue. It pulls the minerals up. So when we bite into a crisp apple, or we drink a complex glass of wine, or even sip our morning coffee, we are briefly borrowing the earth's mouth.
We become the medium.
We are participating in Gaia's act of sampling the specific flavor of her own hillside. We are just temporary taste buds made of dust, allowing the mother to taste herself.
It makes the daily act of eating and drinking incredibly intimate. You are suddenly part of a planetary sensory loop. But, as beautiful as that is, we must be careful not to only paint a gentle, nurturing picture of this planetary tongue. A tongue that only hums soft vowels and tastes sweet wine isn't a whole tongue.
Yeah, the text makes sure we don't just reduce this to a pleasant, sanitized greeting card about Mother Nature. The tongue has teeth.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, when the Earth produces a massive earthquake, or a tectonic fault line violently snaps, or a volcano erupts after 400 years of total quiet, it isn't a malfunction. The Earth isn't broken.
It's just speaking differently.
A natural disaster is the tongue producing the hardest, sharpest consonant possible. It is a shout of correction.
It reminds me of the myths we started with. Gaia didn't just passively endure Uranus when he became tyrannical. She plotted, she created a sickle, and she violently corrected him.
That is the crucial takeaway. An earthquake is the kind of voice that only comes out when gentleness has been tried for a very long time, and the subterranean pressure simply must be released. A whisper or a soft river vowel isn't going to carry far enough to relieve the tension, so the earth shouts.
Right.
It's still her tongue speaking. It is just a register we prefer not to think about because it threatens our illusion of absolute stillness.
So what does this all mean for you? When you finish this deep dive, take out your earbuds and walk outside to your car, how does this actually change your day?
Well, the text wants you to realize that the exact asphalt you are standing on, or the highway you're driving over right now, is mid-sentence.
Beautifully put.
Every valley you drive through is a held vowel that was opened specifically wide enough for you to pass. The water you drank with your breakfast today tasted you just as much as you tasted it. You have been standing in her mouth this entire time, participating in the syllables. And it leaves us with something vital to consider, a thought that builds right on top of this incredible geography of speech. If the Earth's physical landscape is quite literally its voice, its vowels and consonants carved patiently over millions of years by water and pressure, what happens when human beings intervene at the massive industrial scale we do today?
That's the big question.
When we pave massive concrete highways across floodplains, when we dam ancient carving rivers to generate power, or when we dynamite our way through the hard pallet of a mountain range to build a tunnel, are we giving the Earth a speech impediment? Or are we simply becoming the newest, strangest part of its ongoing dialect? Next time you look out your window, ask yourself, what is the ground trying to say and how are we changing its voice?